everybody, welcome back to the Tokyo FinTech podcast. For our latest episode, we welcome Fabrizio Villani, who is the co-founder and head of growth at Fintastico. Fintastico maintains an inventory of FinTech services that are available, primarily with the focus on European and American companies, and they're planning to build out an API ecosystem across all these companies. Fabrizio is an Italian who studied in Holland and Amsterdam and then took a FinTech job in Barcelona. So lots of our conversation is around, at the macro level, the European FinTech system, but also with a specific focus on the Italian and the Spanish markets.
I'm usually based in Spain. I'm Italian, and since 2013 I moved from Amsterdam to Barcelona in order to start to work in a fintech company. By luck, on LinkedIn, I found a job offer in a fintech company back in 2013, and then after the interview, I decided to move to Barcelona. My Dutch was pretty bad, so I was like, let's move to Barcelona. Eventually, Spanish would be easier. This was the case. Since 2013, I live here, and since 2017, after a few fintech experiences here in Barcelona, I co-founded Fintastico, that wants to be like an advisor of innovative financial services.
Great. Barcelona has a very interesting technology scene, right?
As an ecosystem, it's quite interesting. Here in Spain, there are Madrid and Barcelona. Then, we have, of course, Lisbon is also growing a lot because they got the Web Summit from Ireland. Then, Paris, Berlin, London, even if no longer in Europe. These are the main hub, I would say, here in Europe right now.
What is your primary focus with Fintastico? You have a very comprehensive database of fintechs on your website.
Right now, our focus is mainly on European and North American fintech companies, not because we don't like Asia, but because of regulation. So, for instance, peer-to-peer lending regulation, it's really different from Europe to China. For us as a team, it would be much complicated to map out and categorize also the, let's say, Chinese fintech companies out there, but eventually it's something that we want to do also in the near future, because one of our partners is in Singapore. He was Chief Information Officer for Barclays at European level. Now he's working in Teradata, but he's like our senior advisor and he has a lot of connection. And eventually, what we can do with Fintastico is not only help companies to get traffic and potential customers and leads, but also like to enter in a new continent. In this case, we're going to help eventually Asian companies.
Do you see any Asian companies coming to Europe already?
Well, Alipay and the big one are coming. I think right now we didn't see any Asian companies entering into the European market, except for the big ones, especially the Chinese one. We believe because the markets in Asia are so huge and the fintech adoption is so high that they will eventually come to the West, but only when they are really strong in their own market.
Certainly from a Japanese perspective, the fintech companies, they focus first domestically, and it's a different mindset from the US where you start with world domination in mind, but because it's the third largest economy, if you have a good standing in Japan, you're already doing pretty well. What's the major trends you're seeing in European fintech these days?
All the business models, a lot of business models are under pressure. Fundraising volume this year will be quite low. Fintechs are looking to reduce costs and be sure that their business model is strong enough to resist pandemic crisis. Of course, I see Europe mainly because we have mainly all the European fintech companies on Fintastico. And what we can see is that there are some verticals like donation-based crowdfunding. Of course, is growing a lot. We discover that we are all humankind and we want to be solidaire. And then there is also an issue with the insurance companies because people don't use cars these days, these weeks, so they are saving with this respect, but then they have to spend a lot of money to refund their clients, for instance, for business disruption. So due to this pandemic crisis, and also like all the events that were cancelled. Of course, some of these events, they have like an insurance policy. A lot of insurance companies, the traditional one, they don't have really strong digital channels. So basically 90% of their sales was based on insurance agents that of course they can't go out from their houses. Insurance is under pressure. I hope in the near future to see more collaboration between insurtech companies that they mainly sell online and the traditional insurance companies. Also because due to this crisis, a lot of people were looking for insurance policy that cover life. And the growth of this kind of search on the search engines grow like 800% in the last few weeks. So there is a demand for this kind of products, but there isn't an offer because insurance companies, they mainly, not all of them, they don't have a digital channels in order to sell policies.
When you look at it from a regional perspective, Northern Europe, Southern Europe, Eastern Europe, where's the difference in the development and the focus maybe from a vertical perspective?
I had the opportunity to take part to an European project called Fintastico that tried to integrate even more the European markets, the different European markets and the different European countries. So, for instance, I went to Bratislava to make a presentation on impact investing and FinTech. It was nice because at the same time, the same day, that there was also one lady from the Ministry of Finance of the Slovak Republic and two other FinTech companies that were talking. And basically, Fintastico is mapping out all the peer-to-peer lending and invoice trading platform or all the financing solution of alternative finance. It's a job similar to Fintastico, but from an institutional level. While 2 years ago, I went to Brussels for a RegTech event where I had the opportunity to meet a marketing manager from the European Banking Federation. He told me, do you know that all the banking association in Europe, in every single European country, they don't know which are the FinTech in their own country? And I was like, no, actually, I wasn't expecting this. And he told me, yes. And actually, I mean, Fintastico, it would be really useful for them find out who are these FinTech and how eventually they can approach them. So let's say we're doing a public service, but try, of course, to monetize our effort.
We're hearing that a lot across all the regions, that especially, let's say, the medium-sized banks and the smaller banks, if you're looking at that sector, they don't have the resources to keep tabs on what's going on and what are the interesting models. Maybe the large ones have an innovation team and so on. They can do this a bit more easily, but often the question is, what is going on in this segment or that segment? So yeah, I think your database is tremendously valuable.
As Fintastico, we have sometimes also some banks, consultancy, but of course, because we are a startup, consultancy is not sexy. So right now, our business model is more on affiliate marketing. So we explain a service in a good way, with a guide, and then we help consumers and companies to open an account, and we receive a commission for this. After we close a financing round, we want to develop more like a business model based on open banking and digital identity. Because right now we have more than 3,100 companies on Fintastico, and because there is the appization of FinTech, so every FinTech has an API, so it's easy to integrate all of these API on a single point of access. To sum up, Fintastico wants to be one of the front end, maybe not the only one, but for sure like one of the front end, because we saw plenty of back end solutions that help to connect banks with FinTech, but we are not seeing yet like the face of the open banking. So we want to bring this open banking to every customers and every company.
Do you want to aggregate across certain fintech companies then? So you're like a super app in China?
The point is we are thinking about a smart onboarding where with a few clicks you can open an account with Fintastico, and then every time you don't have to submit the same data for opening an account with other fintech providers, because we will have all fintech providers on Fintastico.
Where do you see fintech companies helping in the current crisis? So there's many of the governments have emergency programs to give subsidies or pay some of the wages. Do you see fintech companies getting engaged, helping, pushing that out and facilitating that process?
Yes, in Italy, last few weeks there were two agreements between two banks, Generali Bank, Banca Generali, and Nexi is an important payment player, and they agreed to provide liquidity to two peer-to-peer lending slash invoice platform, because they realized that these two players are faster in order to provide liquidity to consumers and mainly companies. So hopefully we will see more of these agreements. I mean, fintech are regulated, but they don't have to comply with all the laws and regulations that have to comply banks and insurance companies. In this sense, consumers and companies, they don't have to deal with all the bureaucracy related to banks, and they can gain liquidity faster. For sure, fintech can help, and also like all the donation-based crowdfunding are already helping a lot the whole society, also because consumers usually don't trust, like, hey, send SMS text with your smartphone or your mobile phone, and then you will donate to you. But then you don't have the tracking option, so you don't tell if your donation really reach people that are in need. While with fintech companies and also blockchain and crypto solutions that allow consumers and companies to donate coin or Satoshi in this case to an NGO organization, and also track all the donation and they are based on blockchain, Bitcoin. It's easier for companies and consumers to track their own donation. So this is for sure a plus, because so a lot of extra spending from governments around the world that are not necessary at all. So for sure, fintech can help. The question is, does our own government in the country where we live, does to see an U grow or a V grow of fintech in its own country? And for instance, if I'm thinking about Italy, where the stock market index is mainly represented by banks, so it's a bancarized stock market index, I believe probably they don't have all this interest to see fintech grow fast. But the point is that you can stop technology. Technology goes faster, and also the fintech adoption in other countries that lag behind.
Spanish banks, Santander, BBVA, they are quite innovative, right, in terms of what they're doing, and their venture arms investing into the right type of fintech companies. So they seem to be very active and on the right path.
No, it's true. They are for sure in a better position in comparison to, for instance, Unicredit and Intesa Sanpaolo, two of the biggest one in Italy. And probably, I believe, they are also in a better position in comparison to Deutsche Bank or Commerzbank, because first of all, they are huge. So they are in the top 10 banks worldwide, so they have a lot of resources. They don't have a lot of or less NPL, so non-performing loans. Plus, they have a strategy. Their strategy started already a few years ago. So it's already almost the second year that BBVA had launched aggregator, financial aggregator. So basically consumers, clients of BBVA, they can check their owner's bank account directly from the BBVA bank account aggregator app without any problem or without downloading anything else. That they have it already on their mobile phone, on their smartphone. As Fintastico, I would be just happy if we reach a FinTech aggregator, because there isn't yet. But just to coming back to Santander and BBVA, they have also a strategy where they are quite open on their investments in FinTech. While, for instance, I didn't see the same with Unicredit and Intesa Sanpaolo, where from my perspective, it's always a little bit complicated to find out what they are doing, if they are doing something in FinTech, and which are their kind of investments. Last time that I had the opportunity to talk with someone from Unicredit, I asked directly this question, and he told me, no, it's because it's strategy. We don't want to share information that can be useful for other competitors. So are you saying that Santander and BBVA are stupid? Because I don't think so. I mean, they are sharing, they are open, because even if someone is, let's say, a supporter of FinTech, like in my case, or crypto and blockchain, the fact that a bank is sharing so much information, so many information, it's useful for sure, and increase trust. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing is trust.
In an environment where every bank or every financial player wants to become the platform, that when you want to be a platform, you need to be open and connected. If you are in your own shell, that obviously is detrimental to that effort. So maybe there's still a mind shift that needs to happen. Where do you see the discussion with central bank digital currencies going in Europe?
Crypto underworld, I saw a lot of discussion on private stablecoin and public stablecoin. The same as always with private blockchain and public blockchain, or well, not private blockchain, or just database, private database. Let's see. I think China that is moving fast on this topic, and of course in Europe, I think the Swedish central bank is also doing pretty well with this respect. But I think at the end of the day, a stablecoin makes sense from their perspective, because it's a way to reduce their cost, and also because fiat money are already for 90-95% digitalized. The issue, as always, is with privacy. So do we really want to see the end of cash? There's some benefits, but there's also some negative points to take into consideration. Reduction of freedom, of personal freedom. So we will have more cameras that will measure our temperature, if we have fever, if we paid our loan last month, and so on and so forth. Cryptocurrencies that help, like with privacy, will increase their market size. But of course, even in that case, there will be a battle, a fight between one cryptocurrency fan of cryptocurrency A and the other cryptocurrency fan of cryptocurrency B. So at the end of the day, my suggestion is to reach a standard with the blockchain technology, because it doesn't make sense that they keep fighting each other, like, no, I'm using Corda, no, I'm using Ethereum, no, I'm using Bitcoin. From an outside perspective, it's just a waste of time and resources and people that are fighting each other for topics that the majority of the people and companies don't understand. And then eventually develop like a stable coin that respect all the values and ethics that the crypto community wants to see reflected in a stable coin. Otherwise, private end of the market, in this case, the public private end of the market, we will live in a world where everyone will use a stable coin made by a central bank. So it's going to be eventually more complicated for crypto funds.
Ultimately, the underlying technology should not matter for the consumer. The application, whether it's a currency or an app, is really important, but which protocol it runs on. It's like whether you run an Apple iPhone or a Google phone, Android. Some people have a preference based on the branding and the interface maybe, but they couldn't explain what the difference in the technology is, and neither should they. It will be interesting to see whether we see a standardization of the protocols, or we see this interoperability, which some people are working on, which will be faster. I don't know.
I totally want to know where my data are and who is monetizing my data, with whom is sharing my data. And this is one of the points of GDPR, the latest regulation here in Europe for data protection. And usually what happened is that Europe made a regulation, and then all the other continents copy the regulation and adopt this regulation on a local basis. So let's hope that this is the case with GDPR.
Clearly, digital identity will be a central role, right? And if we had to construct the internet again, we wouldn't probably build it in the same way that it has evolved right now. And that's why people are working on Web 3.0. All of that will take some time. It does need an ID, and it needs an ID that you can federate out, or where you can define subsets of data that you share. And then, I mean, the impact of that is boundless, right?
So, for instance, with the digital identity, the first test is going to be next year, because we're going to face like the end of third-party cookies. So all third-party data. Already Google decided that it's going to kill cookies. So this is going to be tremendous change for publisher and also for advisors to invest in advertisers. It's going to be a huge change, and we see this already with media companies like New York Times and Washington Post and all the other internet journals that are looking for new business models. One of the main changes is with paywall. So you read 3 to 5 articles, and then they suggest you, or they ask you to subscribe in order to keep reading these journals. Millennials and Generation Z, they are using other channels like Telegram. On Telegram, it's possible to read eventually if someone wants journals, because Telegram is Russian-based. No one censor Telegram, because also Telegram is quite censor-resistant. Publisher, they are in trouble because no one is reading a physical edition, or at least the physical edition are decreasing year by year. And with the digital, they are not familiar, and so they have to find out a way how to monetize the digital, except for advertisements that of course they are keep using it, but also like advertisers, they want to see which are the KPIs and measures everything. And so it's going to be complicated with the end of cookies. And from our perspective as Fintastico, we believe that vertical portals on vertical topic will increase their importance in the market, because they will be the ones that they have first party data, and this data will be really useful for other companies. For instance, on Fintastico already we can know which are the trends due to the likes on different topics. We have 17 categories that goes from digital payments to crowdfunding to blockchain, financial services and investments, so wealth tech. And due to the number of likes on our categories, we can see which are the categories that our users prefer or read the most or surf the most. My suggestion is to dig into this topic for our listeners.
That's an interesting change, yeah, for sure. And the point on mass adoption was an interesting one. So if you take that back to the neobanks, for example, the customer numbers for a Revolut or an N26 are quite impressive. It's millions of new customers. When if you look then at the balances, you still see that, well, either it's lots of young people who maybe don't have that much money yet, or or it's people experimenting with the secondary account because it's a new channel, it's easy to open, but the balance is like 400, 500 euros or so, while on the traditional banking, it's a multiple of that. We have mass adoption maybe in numbers, but not in actual usage yet. And the real test of the real adoption will be when people actually use these neobanks as the primary account, right?
From my perspective, we have like traditional finance with banks and insurance companies and traditional players. Then we have FinTech 1.0 with apps and platforms. And here I will also add like new banks, challenger banks. And then FinTech 2.0 with crypto and blockchain related initiatives. Back to the challenger banks, like you mentioned, Revolut and number 26, for sure some of these companies will have problem with following up with their huge funding rounds because of course they will not comply with their KPIs that they promised to the investors, and also investors right now are more focusing on current portfolio of companies, so it's complicated to reach any huge funding round in the following months, I believe at least until 2021. What they can do is to adapt their global offer on a local base. So, for instance, 2 weeks ago, N26, that is, challenger banks with a German licensed bank, allow their Italian customers to have also an Italian IBAN, for instance. And this is from a fiscal perspective, fiscal point of view. Of course, it allows Italian customers to really, let's say, enjoy N26 at its fullness. This is not the case for the challenger banks. So the key here is to really listen to your market, because you have a global offer, but you have to adapt to the local market and find ways where customers are even much happier with your solution. And because like an Italian IBAN will also allow eventually to have your salary direct transfer on N26, or even your pension, if we are talking about people with a little bit of more years. As an outsider that is looking to these challenger banks, I really believe that N26 will have a good future, not only because of the team, but because of the investor that they were able to reach. One is Peter Thiel, the boss of the mob of PayPal. He is really well known. He is anarcho-capitalist. He is really pro FinTech 2.0, even if he made huge money with FinTech 1.0.
What's your advice for, in my case, obviously, Asian fintechs that looking at the European market and want to find an entry? Where's a good starting point?
Well, of course, if you're looking to enter into the South European markets, Italy and Spain, please give me a call. But besides this, I would suggest to enter in contact with the local FinTech association, because in the different European countries there are FinTech associations. But pay attention, because in some countries there are even more than one FinTech association. It's a little bit stupid from my perspective, because single European countries are little, so we really don't need more than one FinTech association per country. But there are some countries where there is more than one FinTech association, so FinTech association can be a good starting point, because they can provide you with a good overview. Otherwise, in order to check out the market, you can also, of course, surf on Fintastico, where we have like FinTech France, FinTech Italy, FinTech Germany, and we collect all the FinTech in the different European countries. And we are updating Fintastico on a weekly basis. And thanks also to filters and tags, it's possible to compare and navigate different technologies, different verticals. And in the future, for the second phase of Fintastico, we are also talking with a FinTech rating agency. The name is Mod Finance, in order to implement eventually rating on fintech companies. This might be useful for investors, for instance, but also for consumers and companies that want to know more on this particular fintech, and eventually integrate this third-party rating, this super partners rating, with also social rating, or for instance, like the information that we can receive from Trustpilot. That is quite a common, useful tool for this kind of comparison, and in order to gain some social rating. And with this second phase, we will provide even more information to consumers and companies, and also to fintech Asian or from other geographies that want mainly to enter into the European market.
Got it. Yeah, super. Wonderful. Thank you very much for that.
Well, thanks to you, Norbert, and also to all the listeners of Tokyo FinTech podcast to have me here today. It was a pleasure, and see you soon. And the most important thing is take FinTech.